Rivalry. Competition. When two equal but opposing forces collide. Many times throughout human history, when this happens, it brings out the best in all parties involved, elevates that chosen industry or sport to a new level. Rivalries are the epic whispers through the echoes of human competition. Montague versus Capulet, Jordan versus Bird, Pepsi versus Coke, Herb Jones versus Bad Boys 2. Truly legendary rivalries that have helped shape the very fabric of our society. Today's topic is not one of these rivalries. It's the 2010 Monday Night Wars. This week on Nothing Good.
Well, gentlemen, here we are. We are now in the year 2022.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing tonight? How are you guys feeling?
Woo.
Doing well. We made it to the new year. It's exciting.
Yeah. Holidays in the rearview mirror. Finally, we get back to some level of normalcy and being mean to each other all the time.
Yes.
Yes.
Not just
indeed.
when cameras are rolling.
Mm-hmm.
You
guys have a nice New Year's Eve?
I'm feeling a little bit more like a human, which is good. I'm on the uptick where the Rona's concerned. Everybody,
Yeah.
it has unfortunately affected the household. So, we're still kind of working our way through that, everyone. But everyone's relatively healthy. No major issues or anything. So, I don't know what 2022's got to offer, but it sure started off in an interesting fashion with that, and a meteor exploding over our collective neighborhood. Always interesting.
Yeah,
don't get that too much every day.
No, you don't. I thought it was interesting. 2021 said on the last day that it's going to take Betty White, and then 2022 said "Hold my beer," and fucking dropped a meteor on us the first day. So everyone, strap in because this is going to be a fun ride. But speaking of fun rides, before we get started with the fucking shit show that will be our first episode of 2022, I want to take this minute to formally announce and thank everybody because the podcast just these last few days before we record this has crossed the 1,000 streams mark, meaning 1,000 of you, asterisk, have enjoyed this show or at least once and then turned it off and never to enjoy it again. And we want to say fucking thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Everyone counts.
Yes. Every single, some more than others, apparently. But we want to do is I want to give a very special, heartfelt thank you to the 1,000 people that have checked out the show. Because, they say that you need to surround yourself with people who believe in you. And I know that the four of us believe in each other, but I can flat out tell you that my wife doesn't. And
oh no!
And whenever I told her, as we were inching closer ever along our milestones here, oh honey, 100 people have listened. She's like, that's great, cool, whatever. And then it was like, honey, 500 people have listened. She's like, okay, wow, whatever. I'm still never gonna listen. She's still never gonna listen. But when I told her it was 1,000 people, she's like, okay, well, good for them. And I was like, yeah, good for them. Good for us.
Them, damn right.
We're getting started. That's 1,000 people that have listened to me at least say the word "come" one time. And that's a statistic I just feel so good about. And I wanted to thank you because without the 1,000 of you, I would just be saying "come" by myself, which is just not a good look,
Yeah. Or to us three, which we're used to anyways.
Oh yeah.
That sounds a lot like 2008 to 2011 for me, Noah.
Right.
Yeah.
But we appreciate you guys, and here's so many more
much.
episodes. We're it's hard to believe we're only just over 4 months in on this experiment too. So 2022 shaping up to be our first full calendar year of broadcasting.
Is it really an experiment anymore? Is it more just now a way of life?
I mean, it's like it's the podcast equivalent of a finger in your ass during a blowjob. You did it once just to try, and now it happens every time. So, are you really experimenting, or are you just fucking weird?
Now you're
liking
just
the show.
I want to make it. No, I'd like to make it weird and ask you a question. Is it your finger up your ass, or is it her finger up your ass?
I would say that it's the first available finger. Available is the one you go with. I mean, personally, the question should not be whose finger. The question, and not just for this topic, but for every topic, everybody, should be how many knuckles deep do you go? Not just in an asshole or at a blowjob, but I'm talking about in life. Are you a one knuckle man? Are you a two knuckle man? Or are you straight down to the fucking nub of it kind of a person? Yeah, it's boom, right?
5 knuckle shuffle.
Doc once said, "Go big or go home," and that includes how many knuckles deep you fucking go. And here at Nothing Good, we're going full nub all throughout 2022.
It's a whole different meaning of 5 knuckle shuffle, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh,
and unlike John Cena, you can see that.
We'll be starting an OnlyFans sometime at the end of this year. So, but speaking of John Cena, we're back on wrestling, guys. We're done with the endless stream of movies we did to round out December there. So, how we feeling about getting back on rotation?
It feels good to be back in professional wrestling for a little bit. I'm excited to talk about this subject.
Yeah, it's one of the original things that brought us together as friends, and through this outlet. So it's good to get back to it and step away from the movie scene for a hot minute.
It's amazing how much I remember that I didn't remember when we started kind of doing the research for this. And I kind of went down that rabbit hole going through that evolution of 2010 and the start of that year, and kind of like how that went forward the next 3-4 months. And it's amazing how much you kind of remember that you didn't remember. It was a hell of a time for wrestling.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. We lived together at the time, Mac. You and I were roommates at that point.
We did, absolutely. Yeah,
it was like a lifetime ago.
That was the Monday Night Ritual. At some point in the evening on Monday, because we recorded it. We always recorded Monday Night Raw on the DVR. So whether we got to watch it at 8 o'clock or we started watching at 9 or 10, Jones and I always made sure that we got through the full episode of Monday Night Raw. And that particular, what we're going to be talking about today, was a very important Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
And
big time.
As we always say, Jones, watching those clips again and watching those promos and bringing me back, man. Bringing me back.
Mm-hmm. So, so we really didn't talk about this before we hit record.
Nope.
We kind of we talked about how we're going to approach this, right? And I kind of like the fly by the seat of our pants sort of technique, right? So we have TNA, Total Nonstop Action Wrestling, no longer being run by Jeff Jarrett. He is no longer in power on any level. He's a minority owner at the stage. And matter of fact, this show is the first show he was at where he was just a talent, which is a really big fucking deal considering he started TNA. But the Carters have kind of moved into that position of power along with Vince Russo and technically, I guess, Hulk Hogan in some capacity, and eventually Eric Bischoff. So now TNA, I believe this show was on Thursdays, or is it Wednesdays?
It was Wednesdays.
Oh, Wednesdays, yeah.
And it moved from its Thursday staple point to Wednesdays.
There you go.
And then wanted to try the Mondays they wanted it weekly and they got it as a special. I'm actually quite keen to talk about this for a second because this is the underlying theme about this whole experiment. And today's episode is TNA taking a big step and doing a big deal and what became of it and what they did with it. Right. But we can't talk about, well, first of all, I don't know how many times, despite all the wrestling we're ever going to discuss, how many times we're ever going to mention TNA on this fucking show. So let's get our fucking money's worth out of this. For the very few people that would bother to listen to a podcast about this subject without knowing the context involved, here is a super bullet point thing. I'm not even going to read notes. 2001, we all know the original Monday Night Wars, WWF and WCW. We've covered it during this fucking show a bunch of times. In March of 2001, WWF buys WCW, picks up a shit ton of wrestlers, and over the next couple of years, even more. The one they don't is Jeff Jarrett. Matter of fact, publicly fucking fire him on the last Nitro.
Man. Yes.
And it's not pretty. A year later, in the summer of 2002, he starts Total Nonstop Action, TNA Wrestling. Immediately struggles with the financial end of the things. And before it closes down, it is saved by Bob Carter, an energy mogul from Dallas, Texas, who installs Panda Energy, who installs his daughter, Dixie. I'm paraphrasing a lot of bullshit history here. His daughter, Dixie Carter, as the president of TNA, to kind of act as the ruler in his stead, to work alongside Jeff. Dixie's to run the business and the Carters to run the business. Jeff's to run the wrestling. This works out pretty good for TNA for a long time. They go from being a Nashville-only based weekly pay-per-view company to eventually getting on Spike TV. And with the Ultimate Fighter being huge on Spike TV at that time, they're getting a lot of bumps. And it leads to what we could indisputably call the Golden Era of TNA in 2006, 2007, when they signed Kurt Angle. You have Samoa Joe and his big breakout. AJ Styles is now a seasoned vet. A lot of talent. Christian leaves the WWE for TNA as well. A lot going on in this era that gives TNA a lot of credit. They have gone from being a bound to fail wrestling organization to now they are the number 2 in the wrestling organizations in the United States. Well, enter the fact that here's what I have to say, and this is a phrase I'm going to keep saying. We have proven on this show that WCW is going to WCW. Even when it's called TNA, it's going to WCW. And Dixie Carter seemed to be the only person in the entire fucking world who didn't get the memo about what killed WCW and saw fit at the golden era peak of TNA to slowly but surely turn this fucking thing into WCW. That includes such WCW maneuvers as bringing in wrestlers for way too much money and way too much creative control and listening to them instead of the people that have been there forever. Number 2, lying to television networks about who you have on your staff, including Vince Russo. And ultimately, number 3, putting yourself on TV when you've never been a wrestling TV character before, just because you want to be famous. These are all top 3 WCW hallmarks that Dixie Carter proceeds to repeat over and over and over again, driving away the golden era of TNA, but inevitably bringing us to the year 2010, or 2009, when they signed Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff, and apparently a shitload of other ex-WCW wrestlers.
Yes.
With the idea, and if there was no more WCW and TNA could do, they decided that they're going to go straight for the jugular and run head-to-head with Vince McMahon the first Monday of 2010. They had promoted this Monday show without letting anybody else know that next week's show would not be on Monday.
That's a minor detail.
A minor detail that no one fucking cared to bother to mention. So the cards are all stacked for TNA/WCW side to restart the Monday Night Wars here on January 4th, 2010. The problem
12 years to the day.
12 years to this day. The problem was that you told Vince McMahon you were coming. And he didn't even feel compelled to put any kind of his current product on the line to go against you. He could not give a shit. On the undercard of that show, you had fucking Alex Riley and shit on that show. Okay? Like that's what we had, you know, like that era of wrestler. All he decided to do is like, oh yeah, they're going to do what? Well, what's the most compelling real life issue in the history of pro wrestling? Let's just open, Dave.
Kofi Kingston's push.
Ah, yes, of course.
Man.
It's a close second. That's a close second.
Is that what we're not talking about in this episode?
I think we're going to talk about the Montreal
Kingston,
Screwjob again.
Kofi Kingston's mysterious push and then it mysteriously just stopping against Randy Orton.
I don't want to talk about it.
That's not what we're talking about.
Oh, we're going to talk about it at some point.
I'm still upset about it.
We all are, Jones. We all are.
Well, without it, we wouldn't have gotten Kofi Mania. So let's go ahead and put that into a perspective. But Vince just decides that it's time to spread just enough cash around to squash the Montreal Screwjob on live national television. And we're going to fucking open the show with that, ensuring that nobody will be bothered to watch TNA on Monday night anyway. So we're off to the races. TNA announces that they're going to come for Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon decides instead of letting them take the first swing, he launches a nuclear fucking warhead and annihilates the entire goddamn thing in one night. It's the 2010 Monday Night Wars. So that's the situation.
Which did not last long.
No,
it was very short-lived.
It's basically the United States invading Grenada.
Yeah,
it's what it was.
Now, from my perspective, I've never really been a huge TNA fan. I enjoyed the product years and years ago. Because you put me on it, Mr. Brown. You put me on TNA back in 2007, 2006, something like that. You kind of stumbled into it and told me about it. The X Division was really what it was. I mean, that was the bread and
you
butter
can
for
even
me.
boil it down. There's a lot of great wrestlers, but AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, and Christopher Daniels were the reason to watch TNA for like 3 years.
Yeah,
until TNA
matches.
Forgot that that's the whole reason that
People
we're
were
watching
in the first place. Yeah.
So, I mean, look, we went over great detail in Montreal Screwjob, like episode 3 or something way back in the archives. Although I do believe that now that we have more people on the roster, more co-hosts, I think that at some point we should revisit Montreal Screwjob. Now that we have more experience and we're comfortable in what we're doing, but you know,
it was a work.
Any audience member who's really curious about Montreal Screwjob and easily one of the most important moments in professional wrestling history, and most influential, that has still rippling, lasting effects to this day, this very fucking day. Please listen to that episode because it's really fucking good. Not to toot my own horn, but as Art Anderson would say, toot, toot. Anyhow, having Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels face off, meet, shake hands, whatever you want to call it, in the middle of the fucking ring, as a fan of professional wrestling, short of Jesus himself walking on fucking water on TNA, I ain't watching it, man.
Even then, I seriously wouldn't have trusted TNA to put Jesus over in the right way. Like, he would have come out, Hogan would have interrupted him for a 14 fucking promo.
He'd have a really shitty promo up front.
That just made a little sense.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something, dude. You may have walked on water, okay? You may have healed Lazarus. You may have turned water into wine, but you would never turn to 24-inch pythons and anything. And first of all, I'm just gonna start right now. How fucking dare Hulk Hogan?
He had some audacity.
You could finish that sentence in any fucking way you want to, but how fucking dare Hulk Hogan do anything ever? Fuck him, right?
Yep, fuck him.
Comes out and runs 2 motherfuckers down on this show that absolutely has no. We'll get there. We're gonna get there. We'll get there.
Slow down.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, it was a really big deal, and like kind of what you were saying, Noah, and I'm sure you gentlemen agree. Like Vince McMahon, he's a giant, and he does not have to move until he chooses to move. Mm-hmm. You tell him, I'm invading your space. I'm coming for you, brother. Vince says, hey, Brett, that's all he has to do. That's all. And it doesn't matter what TNA could have done. Now, before we get further in, I'm curious, Mac, Mr. Vandergrift, what did you guys think? First of all, of the idea that TNA was somehow going to challenge the WWE anyhow in this space, which is laughable at best.
It was absolutely ridiculous. And, even as a casual TNA watcher, like, you knew they didn't have the card, they didn't have the depth, they didn't have the creative. They had a 6-sided ring, which was stupid. Like,
Yeah, it was really stupid. It's still stupid. The idea is stupid to this day.
But just the fact that Vince calls up Brett and says, "Hey, man, do me a solid. Just come to this show." And even people who had distanced themselves from the WWE after the Montreal Screwjob, it brought them back regardless of what they thought of TNA.
Oh yeah.
And it was such a powerful thing to see as a wrestling fan, especially people like us who are overly obsessed with Bret the Hitman Hart.
No shame.
Yeah,
I'm not ashamed.
No shame at all.
No shame at all, man.
But part of us wanted them to go to blows right there because you could sense the tension, and you're like, just fucking have a match right now, and they didn't, and I'm thankful for that as well. And I think it had a lot of power, and the only thing TNA did that was smart was not put Hogan at the front of the card.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I feel
because
like
they knew they weren't going to get the draw to start the show.
No, I absolutely feel like I don't know who let the cat out of the bag. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure if Bruce Pritchard was there at that time for that.
I think he was in TNA. I think he was.
I knew he was around that time, and the time Bischoff was, but I wasn't sure because he like a lot of people were in and out. Somebody was there that knew enough that Vince was going to start. Vince was not going to pay attention to much you did on this show, but he was going to start and end the show fucking strong. So anything you really needed people to see had to happen in the middle, and that's
I almost want to say it was probably Kevin Nash. Really,
maybe.
I mean, I love watching the Broken Skull sessions and the one that he did with Stone Cold recently when he was talking about when he knew it was over for WCW, and watching, because even though those guys weren't on the show, they all still fucking watched, they all still paid attention. And he's like, just the fact that like Vince would have these, and we've talked about this too, guys, a video promo before a match on a pay-per-view was like watching the best movie trailers you've ever seen. You didn't even need to watch Monday Night Raw or SmackDown or pay any attention to any of the shows, but watch that 2.5-3 minute promo video before the match started, and you were completely caught up, and it was fucking riveting, right? And one of the things that it's so interesting because you got your thoughts about what was going on when it happened. And then going back and watching it all over again at this stage, 12 years later, not as emotionally invested in it because you already knew what happened, but being able to kind of watch it for what was actually happening and what they were trying to do and what they were planning. I loved watching that whole thing with Brett and with Shawn for what it didn't give me. And that right there is what was so brilliant about what WWE does and what its competitors haven't been able to figure out is that, you were waiting for them to kind of like bury the hatchet and, say sorry and, kind of have that real life, what two people would do if they, come back together 12 years later if they done fucked up. Right. But instead it was, Shawn saying I would do it again. There's a big part of me that, that knew what I was doing. And I bet, and you hear those things and you're like, well, wait a second, this isn't exactly what I thought I was going to hear. Is Brett going to fucking sit there and take this? Is he going to take the hand? Like they created something, they recreated a part of that tension for everybody, which set forward what WWE ended up doing the next 4 months with that whole program leading into WrestleMania. And when you go back and you look at what happened on TNA when Hogan showed up eventually in that paper, in that show and everything, they didn't have that. They didn't have the plan. They didn't have the angle. They didn't give you something, leaving you wanting more. They just basically gave you the same shit that ended WCW, and you just kind of think to yourself, well, they didn't learn.
Yeah, one thing that I don't know if you guys picked up on this, and watching it back now, knowing how everything unfolded over the years, at the end of that promo, when Brett calls out Vince and Vince doesn't come out, and they cut to Vince in the back, and he's like, I'm not watching that shit. I was in a meeting. Like I picked that up as he's talking about TNA. He's not talking about
absolutely.
Brett.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, there's something going on right now?
Yeah.
Whatever.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
No, it's excellent call. Excellent call. I think it might be better for our composure in our psyche.
Your composure.
My composure in psyche. Because this is a conflicting thing. On one side, you have Vince McMahon not doing much else except dedicating the front and the middle, and the end of the show to the Montreal Screwjob. And the middle is largely completely forgettable filler.
Yeah, it's just filler.
Yeah.
Yep.
But doing that elicits an extreme emotional response from everybody, longtime fans, new fans. They even told you everything you need to know if you didn't even know who the fuck these guys were, right? And on the other side, on the other channel, is TNA doing the most TNA thing that TNA knows how to do, and it's literally at some points turns into a fucking circus. So, what I'd like to do, if this is okay with you, is let's just cover everything that we want to talk about on the Raw side and the Montreal Screwjob side.
Okay.
And then we can flip that shit sandwich over.
Yeah.
And
I think that's an excellent
shit
idea.
off the bottom.
Yeah.
May I?
Please.
For a split second. So, and I feel like you and I have said this at least twice. Let's try not to make this a love letter to Bret Hart, but God damn it, it's almost always going to be.
Yeah.
There are two admissions I want to make to the audience and to you gentlemen about this entire subject that we're covering today. One, I have a really hard time being unbiased when it comes to Bret Hart's career, because Bret Hart is the first wrestler who made me question, was that real? Did he just fucking do? Did he really hit? He was just that fucking good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, I have a real fucking hard time being unbiased with Hulk Hogan. And now, as an adult, and I can't, and it sucks. I cannot enjoy Hulkamania. I can't enjoy him slamming Andre. I can't enjoy him fighting Savage. I can't enjoy the whole fucking ride to WrestleMania 5. It sucks because he's a piece of fucking shit. It is what it is. We gotta live with it. I gotta live with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to approach this not being irritated by his very fucking presence.
It's impossible.
Yeah, it's hard.
But, I tried. Get that out of the way. So, Monday Night Raw. Bret Hart and fucking Shawn. Look, how fucking interesting it was for me, right? I never even realized. I hadn't watched any of the stuff from that Raw in years. So, it was Goosebump City, watching that happen again. I remember sitting watching that on the couch on the sectional at the estate back in the day, right? But there's one thing that didn't even click until now, years later, which is really fucking cool. Bret Hart and Mr. McMahon have a fucking face-off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, makes sense. They have issues. Hold the fuck on. Bret Hart is having a face-off against Mr. McMahon, not Vince. Mr. McMahon, the fucking character he created.
Yeah, the heel.
And didn't even
the
fucking
ultimate heel.
The gravity of Montreal creating the Mr. McMahon character. That is where it came. Wasn't Austin. Austin refined it and made it fucking explode to become the biggest heel in wrestling. Sure. But if Montreal had never happened, there'd be no Mr. McMahon. Period. Point blank. End of story. He wouldn't exist. And to have those two have a fucking conversation in character like that was such a fucking mark out cool ass moment for me that I never even realized how complex that actually is, and how one thing leads to another, one conversation, one disagreement, one side eye, one wrong line in a promo that leads down this path whether it's a work or a shoot doesn't matter at this point, right, Noah? But what matters is Vince McMahon, the fucking evil CEO, the evil billionaire president, the evil leader of the WWF, the WWE, and the victim, Bret Hart. It was poetry. It was perfect watching that happen now, years later, in hindsight, being 2020. I just thought it was really cool, and I'm glad you guys realized that, because I'd never put those two together when it happened. I was just caught up in the moment.
Oh no. But you play it back now, and you're like, oh, fucking that. Here's the thing, and I think we can all perhaps agree on this, but it's really easy being WWE fans and watching WWE largely all of our lives, because that's from Northeast kids to where we, to it being a global thing today. It's largely been the most readily available pro wrestling to any of us for the entirety of our lives, right? And it's really easy to view WWE's product in a vacuum, to where you're like, oh, it's not what it used to be. It's not this era. It's not the Attitude Era. How many times did we think during this era that the show takes place, and even a few years before, oh God, man, it's just not like it was in 99 or 2000 or 2001. Then you fucking go back and watch that show, and you look how fucking stacked the shows are and how hot the crowds are. And the fact that the ratings are still higher than they are today. It's really easy with WWE to look at it in a now only bubble and not appreciate the fact that they have almost at any moment in time the smartest available people in wrestling working for them at every moment in time. So they can do fucking things like layering like that. A note that one of the few notes I have about WWE's side of this is that WWE has always known how to give the people exactly what they want. They just have to choose to give it to them. And they largely deny us this for the sake of an ultimate payoff that sometimes never comes. But they fucking gave it to us here. And it's until it materialized in front of you, you didn't even fucking know that it was possible, much less you need it. And I'm glad that you made the fucking note, Doc, because I'm just going to say it now about my opinion that Montreal is a fucking work.
It is not.
Because it is absolutely a fucking work. But regardless if it is or not,
right.
I watched the Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and the Vince McMahon segments twice. Once, letting my guard down as it happened, assuming like everybody else that it's a fucking shoot. And seeing this instance in which these guys talk a few minutes backstage, come out, hash it out, then they go out into the arena and cut their promos and work their angles and build to WrestleMania. And it still is fucking great, right? Because if it is a shoot, you still have Shawn Michaels going into business for himself, which we all fucking know that he does, right? Or led to believe all these years that he does. And he goes into business for himself, and he's like, I want you to know, I still would have done it. Which is, of course, Shawn Michaels, for some reason, pretends to be a Jesus dude and has been since the minute he comes back. But the minute Bret Hart shows up in the ring, all of a sudden it's 1997 again.
Shawn
and he's fucking back in a nutshell, right? Like it's like you just bring it back out of me. I don't even know I'm doing it anymore. Which it works in the idea that it's a shoot and it is as we believe it is and it goes. But as a work, it's still fucking masterful, because if it is a work, now bear with me, regardless of the fact that this is that the Montreal screw job happened 13 years before this fucking show, right? That you're still in the ring with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. And regardless you want to say about their promos, they're not The Rock, right? But they're still Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. They're still multiple-time WWF champion. They still drew money as champion. They can still work, right? So they know how to tell a story. And if it is a work, then all they had to do was go out and play the exact same fucking people that they played in 1997 to the crowd. Shawn Michaels is a ruthless, self-centered asshole who thinks he was doing the right thing by the company. And Bret Hart thinks that he's Canadian Jesus and cannot do any wrong and really has nothing to apologize for. And that it's perfect. What would have been different? And what
in
leads
Bret's defense, he's Canadian and they do walk on water all the time. It's just called ice hockey.
There you go.
There it is.
Ice cold molten. Throws it over at street level. But still, like it to me, this segment, which I believed it was work before this segment happened, but this segment to me is a fucking check in the work box. Because if that's really the fucking case, and you're really going to have two guys go out there and bury the hatchet, are they going to cut a very neat little promo on each other? It's going to probably be a little sloppier than that. But no, it's exactly what you would want out of the situation. Shawn Michaels is unremorseful, but Jesus. Bret Hart feels no feelings towards Shawn Michaels and is the babyface. And Vince McMahon, well, is Vince McMahon.
So
he's literally a carny. He's literally a carnival.
Look. I do not, and I would never go out of my way to insult your intelligence, so I'm not going to.
You do it all the time.
Oh, fuck you, I do not.
Well, first of all, you just did it there. And second, I don't
go out of my way
to. A listener brought up something to me this week where when we were mentioning the Mortal Kombat, they listened to the Kombat 95 episode.
I'm sorry.
I mentioned when you said that Mortal Kombat was the greatest video game movie of all time. And I said
I stand behind that.
And you asked me what was, and I said that the newer Sonic the Hedgehog movie was better than Mortal Kombat 95. And you fucking screamed into the microphone, "You motherfucker, you lie where you sit."
That sounds about right.
That's exactly what you said.
You deserve every
right.
word of it.
I mean, I might have, but still talking about coming at me. So just saying, you said that to me, and you won't have consensual penetration with the Sega Channel. So
no.
What else you got to say to me? Come on.
Again, like back to the subject at hand, my friend. Again, I will not go on my way to insult your intelligence. I would never try to do that on purpose. I don't think you're wrong at all. In this particular situation, I don't think that, and I never thought at any point personally, as a fan, as a consumer of the medium, I never assumed that entire exchange was a work at all. It can't be. Too much has happened for them to come out and just spitball like that. I don't think that Vince McMahon would actually let them go on national fucking live television and just shoot from the fucking hip like that.
Oh, no way. No.
So,
no, I wouldn't imply that.
I mean, look. Well, I mean, that's kind of what I got from what you were saying.
No.
I think that it was clearly, the whole conversation was obvious. Not scripted necessarily. Those guys don't do scripting. You get your bullet points, you're going to get across, and then you go with it. I think that, what they felt was pretty how they felt. I mean, I know you think it's a work, and that's all well and good. We can be on two separate islands on that one. But from my perspective, you put these two very proud men on national television to air how they feel, they're not going to come out and just shit talk each other. They're past that point. They're parents. Some of them have changed and have dropped their drug habits, things like that, and I felt like it was so awkward because it was from how they felt. You know what I mean? They had to get to a point, they had to shake hands, they had to hug, or maybe the hug was a surprise, who knows, But I believe that, Montreal, I think this is why we should revisit it. I think that Montreal, everything that led to it was a work, and they worked themselves into a shoot, as we've all heard that term.
Mm-hmm.
It got out of hand real fast, real hard, and what could have been big money ended up being a shitty situation for everybody involved. But years later, I truly believe that, them standing in the ring like that, yeah, it was very controlled, very monitored. But the money is in the truth, how you feel, So I think Shawn was telling him how he felt. I'm quite sure he feels like, yeah, I've fucking done it again. I felt strongly about it. And Bret, awkwardly enough, didn't really have a rebuttal to that. If you really pay attention to what he says, instead of having like a comeback that's more of like a work, like, well, Shawn, no, he just goes, well, you weren't the easiest person to get along with either,
No, I see. To me, that's where it reeked into Shawn Michaels doing what Shawn Michaels do, and again to blur the line between work shoot a little bit. And you're like, all right, Shawn, I want you to go out there and count to 3, and then let the other person go 4, 5, 6. And Shawn Michaels counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then leaves you about a half a second to slip your 6 in, because that's what he does, right? And he just, of course, Bret Hart had maybe said his retirement speech was the only thing he said on WWE TV since Montreal, and it was at the Hall of Fame. And again, blurring the lines there between work and shoot. He probably is just trying to get in and out because he knows that he's signed himself up for a train ride of a show to work with Vince McMahon going into WrestleMania. Let's just get through this. But Sean sees this as, Sean's chance to be Sean.
I don't even think that it was Sean's chance to be Sean. I think that the way that played out was extremely controlled. What I'm most interested in is the conversations that happened behind the scenes, backstage, that convinced everybody that there's money in this, and let's take it in this direction, right? The fact that it was Brett who, was the one to offer the olive branch. Look, when you're wronged by somebody, when you're legitimately wronged by somebody, are you the person to call up the other person who fucked you over, who put their finger 4 knuckles deep into your asshole, and be like, I want to make amends of this? That's not how it works, right? The person who was wrong and the person who initiated the act is the person who extends the olive branch and says, I'm sorry for what I did and my place in that, and I want to make things better. Because, look, if you're the person who goes up to the other person and says, you wronged me, cool, let's go ahead and make up, you're kind of being a little bit of a bitch there where that's concerned. Because you're basically letting the person know that you wronging me is kind of still okay, right? Which then goes back to, the work versus the shoot piece of it. Because, if it is a shoot, how do you get Bret Hart? And I've seen the interviews, right? We've all watched the documentary. We've read the book. We've listened to everything he has had to say about that. How are you the person to go ahead and say, I want to offer the olive branch now? That's the angle of this that brings I want to know what those real conversations were like the months or years leading up to everybody convincing that this was a good idea to do this and the direction they wanted to go in, because that's where the real shit goes on. And, if it was a shoot, that's where the interesting stuff is. But I think everything they did from the moment Brett's music hit until the end of that pay-per-view was completely agreed upon by all parties. And I think, you guys say we're going to have Sean be Sean, but you can't have Sean be Sean and say that to Brett if it was a shoot, and Brett not pop him in his fucking face, in front of everybody, right?
Or walk out and not come back.
I would do it again, and just the things that he said to Brett. You can't say that to somebody that you wronged if you don't already know they're going to say that. So I think everything that they ended up doing as a part of that was known and
absolutely
was completely put in there, because otherwise Brett's going to knock Sean out in front of 14,000 people in the Nutter Center. I just have to say that too.
Oh yeah.
It was
the Nutter Center.
This was in Dayton, Ohio, the show, everybody, in the Nutter Center. And I think that is, worth saying. And then the millions.
Max, I wanted to try to answer your question, actually.
Yeah.
It was a really good question. And none of us are Brett or Sean or Vince or anybody, the parties involved. But if there's one thing I think we can all agree upon with the man known as Bret Hart from Canada, is that he takes himself and his career incredibly seriously.
Super serious.
So serious, in fact, that it led to the Montreal Screwjob. If it was, in fact, a shoot. You ask, well, how does you get from point A to point B to the show, right? How does everything that happened, it was a bad situation, feelings were hurt, blah, 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 blah. A messed up WCW run, losing his brother, a stroke later, ended career horribly. A lot of fucked up shit happened to Brett in a short amount of time. That's also another conversation for another time.
Yes.
You guys hate Goldberg for that so much.
Here's the funny thing: I don't like Goldberg before that.
Yes.
I didn't like him before that.
Right. Yeah, for sure. But that alone is enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's what else do you mean?
But yeah, so I think the reason Brett
I don't
came
hold
back,
the same animosity that you guys hold for Goldberg as to when Stone Cold, got, pile drived and broke his fucking neck in the ring. Like you guys take it so personally, and that's because of how much you love Bret Hart, and I get that. But sorry to go on, Jones.
Yeah. Oh boy. So anyhow, the deal is, I think the reason he gets from point A to point B, he gets from not working with the WWE to working with the WWE again, is honestly for his legacy, for his image, for his ego, for his career, what's left of it, right? He says something very interesting in that when he came out and talked. He says, I want to thank you guys for keeping me in your heart, keeping me alive, keeping my history, who I am, going, right? Because even though the WWF, had no problem, because they own all his matches, right? The reality is that, Bret Hart loves Bret Hart more than anybody else, and he absolutely needed to get this done. Whether it was for millions of dollars or whatever, Bret Hart needs the Hitman to live on. He needs to be in the fake Hall of Fame. I said it. He needs to have his accolades, because that's how the Hitman exists. Because he is the excellence of execution, right?
I mean, yeah.
Best there is, was never will be.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Jafar, you go for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you hit the nail on the head with the word legacy. Like, I think that's what it comes down to. The Hitman takes himself so serious, and he wanted the fans to take him as serious as he takes himself. Mm-hmm. And he didn't get that in WCW, because WCW was a shit promotion.
Because WCW.
Yeah. And I think he felt like his star had fallen, and the only way to get that back up was to come back home, if you will, to the WWE. And I think, I think the animosity was real, but I also think the respect was real between those two guys. And as a fan, that's really all you wanted out of the entire promo.
But let's kind of talk about that real quick here, though, just to play devil's advocate for a second. You take Bret's experience in WCW even off the table, and everything afterwards, of him leaving WWE after the Montreal Screwjob. You can't have a conversation with a wrestling fan and talk about who the greatest wrestlers of all time, and everybody will say Bret Hart. He's always going to be in the conversation, regardless of how his career ended, regardless of his stint in WCW, regardless of any of those things. So, I would sit there and say, playing devil's advocate, that what kind of a greater legacy do you need to have? Whether it's for yourself or for your family or for your ego or for Canada or anything else, because it's already known that in the greatest wrestlers of all time, Bret Hart is always in that conversation. And when you look at how wrestling changed, what he was able to do, his legacy is the fact that CM Punk was one of the longest reigning WWE champions of all time, because that never happens if Bret Hart doesn't come along, or Daniel Bryan, or anybody who's under 250 pounds getting a title doesn't happen without Bret Hart doing what he did. So all those things aside, I think his legacy was very well cemented by what he already put on tape prior to that.
You're not wrong.
Yeah,
but I will cover. If I may, I just want to say one thing, and I will leave the table for this. You're not wrong, and you valid points. But I will counter what you said. Simply this: Bret Hart, and you're right, in the minds of many fans, young and old, who didn't even watch him wrestle, in his prime, regard him as one of the great in-ring performers ever. Period. However, it would be even nicer, man, getting in that Hall of Fame, Mac. Hall of Fame solidifies you, dude. It is a big deal because Bret Hart may be the excellence of execution. He may be the best there was, but the ever will be comes when you get in the Hall of Fame. I really feel like that's the deal. Getting that ring, getting that nod. He gets the nod, man. It's one thing for internet fans or hardcore tape traders to laud him as like the greatest of all time or one of. It's arguable, but it's another thing to get the nod in the Hall of Fame. That's a totally different ball game for all professional wrestlers who didn't even wrestle in the WWF get in the Hall of Fame, and it's a big deal. And I really think that's what it boils down to. Ego. Getting in the Hall of Fame was one of those single most important things because it validated everything that he said. It validated all he felt about himself. It validated all the chants, let's go, Bret. It validated his 5 heavyweight championship wins. That's it. That's the end game for him is the Hall of Fame. And it was a big fucking deal for me as a fan. I've watched more Bret Hart matches than any other wrestler that I can fucking think of. More than once. But him going into the Hall of Fame was such a big deal for me. Bigger than any other Hall of Fame induction will ever be for me in my entire lifetime. So that's what I think. It's the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think to kind of add into that, to kind of take a slightly different approach to it. Bret has always publicly regarded himself as a wrestler's wrestler, right? Comes from a family of wrestlers. Taught a guy whose single greatest accomplishment from his own words is never hurting another person in the ring, right? Like that's how he esteems. He levels up the work above all else. That's how he justified all of his business decisions when he was champion. How he put together his matches, the work, the wrestling, the work. And from Bret's perspective, what that comes into is recognition for the work from his peers and the people he did the work for. And it wasn't, I think there's going to be enough of us, if Bret never came back and never did this, there'd be enough of us to this day that would keep doing what you said, Mac. Have the conversation about the greatest of all time and throw Bret Hart's name in there. And you'll never be able to come up with a concrete, definitive greatest wrestler of all time the way we did with proving mathematically that Die Hard is a Christmas movie or any of those other things, or the way we will one day prove that Bad Boys 2 is a watchable film. But what the Hall of Fame nod could do is that wrestlers are notoriously inclusive to themselves, exclusive to others, and they're about the cash and the creative, the money and the miles, right? Mm-hmm. And for every Bret Hart fan that we are, and Bret Hart fans that are workers, there were people that worked alongside Bret Hart that weren't in Bret Hart's position, that have just as loud a voice as Bret Hart does in 2009, 2008 before this, that can say, well, Bret wasn't a draw. Bret wasn't in with the WWF at their biggest time. He wasn't on top in either of the 2 biggest times in the company. What does Bret have to do, right? Where is the recognition for Bret? Where is that? But by mending the fences and having Vince McMahon now come out and publicly say that Bret Hart is one of the greatest WWF champions of all time. And Vince McMahon has said that he thinks that Bret Hart was the most important WWF champion that they ever had because he was the champion between the 2 eras that kept the WWF in business. And for Vince's perspective, having Bret Hart legitimizes this fake Hall of Fame idea. You can put Hulk Hogan in there and you can put Steve Austin in there. But for everyone else, that it's like, well, what is a wrestling Hall of Fame? Well, it's about the journey, right? And who's a more journeyman wrestler? So I think chasing that down was important for Bret because then it became indisputable. Once this whole thing and that now his legacy is back, and which is important to Bret was the work. And like that meme we sent to each other, 2 weeks ago, Bret Hart said, at best, wrestlers today don't wrestle like Hulk Hogan. Wrestlers today wrestle like Bret Hart.
Yep.
Well, I mean, Bret was inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2006, so you're doing this 4 years later, right? So, whatever fences needed to be mended were mended, years before we got to this, know. So, but that's the thing. It's like, why do it now? Why do it in 2010? Why not do it in when he's getting inducted into the Hall of Fame or leading into that? Why was the timing where it was to make that work? Was it more along the lines of him getting his father inducted into the Hall of Fame? Because I mean that was when Stu was inducted, and just work the angle at that point because he had another angle. But so go ahead and talk to me about this, Noah.
I got this.
Maybe it was because some other asshole thought that he could restart the Monday Night Wars on the same day.
Because
Some asshole named Hulk Hogan.
That's it. That's exactly what it is. Because as deep and as personal and as important to wrestling and Vince McMahon and everybody as Bret Hart and Vince McMahon is, and nobody fucking pissed Vince McMahon off more than Hulk Hogan doing what the fuck Hulk Hogan gonna do. And Vince McMahon will eat any amount of shit as long as he doesn't have to eat Hulk Hogan shit ever again. He ate 83 weeks of that shit. He went to a steroid trial dealing with that shit. Okay. So when they're on the same page, they're best friends, pal, and they're printing fucking money and all of that other horse shit. But when Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan don't like each other, motherfuckers go at each other's throats. And that's what it is. Vince is like, well, fuck. Gotta show Terry. Fuck him. Call up Bret. Let's get a thing going. WrestleMania. Oh, Bret can't bump Vince. I don't fucking care. Have every. You know what, Bret? What does it take? Do you want every single member of the Hart family plus the help that works at their houses to come out to the ring at WrestleMania and slap me in the face with a fucking dildo? We'll do it just to prove Terry can eat an ass.
There's an SNL skit from the early 2000s where I think Molly Shannon played Sally O'Malley. I don't know if you guys ever remember that, where she's just wearing the red jumpsuit and she's like, I'm 50. I'm going to kick. I'm going to stomp. I'm going to stretch. I'm 50. I think that was Vince McMahon basically telling Bret Hart that he could do this match at WrestleMania. It's like, listen, everything you're going through, I understand, but look at how old I am. And I'm going to fall over this table and let your family all take bumps on me. So what more can you really want at this point?
Now, I would love this opportunity to morph into that WrestleMania match. We're not going to do it because as much as I'd love to continue to take the piss out of Vince McMahon and lift up Bret Hart on to the higher echelon he deserves, but more importantly, as much as I'd love to fucking get really pissed off about Bruce Hart, which is going to happen on this show one day, because ain't no family have the level of fuck up. My brother Drew watches this show, listens to this show, and he's my family's fuck up. And Drew will never, on his worst day, reach the level of Bruce Hart. And I feel like I need to go on a rant about that. But before I rant about that, what we need to talk about is the fact that WWE opened up this Raw with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels standing in the ring. And in response to that, TNA opens up the 2010 Monday Night War. Now here's that. I don't understand. It's impossible to tell a stupid person that they're stupid, or a truly selfish person that they're selfish. They lack the comprehension and the skill to understand this. You cannot put your head in the space that it takes to book this fucking shit. It can't happen organically. You can't put yourself in the spot. But TNA decides to point out and bring up the fact that they're different on their Monday Night War by having a Steel Asylum match to open up this fucking show.
Well, Noah, when you have a birthday party, right, and your kid, you get all these brand new toys, right? And you want to play with them so bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just want to go right for it.
Yeah.
But the first thing you decide to do is open up the playset. And that's basically what they did. And you guys said something early on about one of the things that drew you to TNA was the X Division, which is, essentially what this is. So, if you think about it, if we're playing, again, just playing devil's advocate here for a moment, if you're going to go ahead and bookend the show with really your two strongest pieces, you can open the show with an Asylum match, which I'm just waiting for somebody to break their neck in this premise on this
Oh
thing.
my God.
and then obviously how they closed the show with their two biggest pieces, their two biggest wrestlers. But I don't know that it was necessarily a bad idea on how to start it out. I think it was poorly executed.
Oh man, so poorly executed.
Yeah,
It wasn't great. It was not great.
For the listeners that are going, I would insist that you watch this just to understand the fucking hilarity of what we're about to tell you about. But the Steel Asylum is a steel cage similar to the Hell in a Cell, but round for some reason. That
because of the 6 sides.
That wraps up over the fucking cage, over the ring, similar to, I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever seen a diaphragm, but it looks like a fucking diaphragm, okay?
Yeah.
Standing over the ring.
I was going to say like one of those water bottles that you have at work, but flipped upside down. But I mean, diaphragm's better. Thank you very much for that one, Noah.
It's a diaphragm, but also like a shitty diaphragm that your girlfriend insists work. It's got a big hole right in the middle at the apex. And whereas and just like a diaphragm, it's got a bunch of little guys inside of it. And one's inevitably gonna peek its way through the center and escape. That's the theory, right? Is that it's a multiple fucking man X Division match, which I understand. It's the X Division started off, and the fact that you have the entire X Division seems to be in this goddamn match, including the X Division champion, but his title's not on the line for reasons. Fucking figure that out, right? And so the first one to escape
he probably wasn't going to be strong enough to get out through the hole. That's probably why the title wasn't on the line.
Oh man,
I think that's what you're going to have to assess with here. Is that there are let's kind of what we had Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley, had the Motor City Machine Guns, right? Who are excellent Ring of Honor and TNA mainstays, right? You had Homicide, fucking Homicide.
And you had Suicide, and you had Pesticide, and you had Herbicide, and you had Patricide, and you had
Amazing Red, who is the X Division champion at that time. So Amazing Red, truthfully, one of the only serious things I'll say about the show, is an incredibly talented wrestler who just never seemed to get a break outside of TNA. You had Kiyoshi, and you had, this is interesting to me, fucking Xavier Woods in this match.
Consequences Creed, baby. I love it.
Right. And it's okay, of course. And you had Jay Lethal doing the Macho Man gimmick, right?
Right.
So you had all of these guys in this match, and I can't definitively name whether everyone in this match was strong enough to do that. But Xavier Woods was, and still is to this day, built like a brick shithouse, right?
Right.
That guy could have gotten out of the ring.
I'm just saying, when was the last time you hit the monkey bars at the playground and went all the way across?
Oh, no. I mean, it's been a long time. I was way skinnier last time I even attempted to do that. Now I just hold my child up and, and sell what she sells it too, like we're struggling to get across it. But regardless, no one should have had to have done this because it was a shitty concept. And what's the point of having another person win this match in a shitty way if the title's not on the line, right? So this whole horse shit happens. High spot after high spot, and there were some cool spots in this. Let's not get it wrong. I think
there were some awkward ones too.
There were some awkward ones. Yeah, it was a very spot-driven match.
Oh my god, yeah.
Oh, it all ends with Homicide and his fucking baton clearing the ring because, of course,
including his partner,
yes.
Yeah.
In WCW, true WCW fashion, in a gimmick match that is full of nothing but high spots, the difference maker is a random foreign object that had nothing to do with the story of the match. Like, it's inserted, and then Homicide fucking climbs his way slowly to the top, and then time stops.
It just stopped for over 70 fucking seconds.
The camera had to cut away.
He can't climb out. He can't get out.
The camera has to cut away. and go to weird angles to show this thing.
Yeah.
How uncomfortable is that?
There was nowhere. I mean, if you look at how that thing. I was really paying attention to this. How they had that thing constructed. there was no way to get, like, I don't know if anybody tested this before they decided to put it in the ring or anything.
No, they didn't.
But
didn't.
Like the grip points in anything you could possibly use, because everybody, if you're a rock climber and they have to go in those inverted ceilings in order to, like, you know, go up, and then it goes this way, and then they have to go up again, and they're basically hanging with just their hands, whatever grip they can kind of hold on to, in order to get past this ceiling and get back to the next part. That's how this thing was designed, except the pieces and the rings got smaller as you got to the opening, so there was no place to actually grab onto or hold on to. And no matter how strong these guys are, you don't see this shit watching American Ninja Warrior.
No.
They're not cruel enough to do this to anybody on that show who's trained to handle it.
No. Jeff Jarrett on his podcast about this exact instance said that they never did a dry run on this match beforehand because, and I quote, they didn't want anybody getting hurt when they were running through the show. Which should fucking tell you that this is not a good enough idea to put on your live television show as the opening segment on your Monday Night Wars. But it fucking happens. Homicide can't do it. He can't do it. He stays up there for all of eternity. The world gets, and the fan, and then he gets down and he just starts hitting people with the baton again. Because I want to know if during these 70 seconds that he was up there, is that what he came up with? Right? Like if that's the only way out. And then they take a steel cage 8-man match, or 9-man match or whatever it is, 10-man, whoever the fuck knows. And they decide it's a no contest. There's no winner because nobody can win the match. And in the truest WCW fashion, on the biggest night of your company's existence, on the opening segment of your fucking Monday Night Wars, your fans boo you. They don't boo the crowd. They boo the show. And you are precisely one segment into this fucking thing.
It's amazing. You know, he's got to be sitting up there like 45 seconds into his 70 seconds of terror, just motherfucking everything, every single person who thought this was a good idea. And you know, like at some point, 60 seconds in, somebody from the side of the ring just said, "Fuck it, pull out the stick, and beat the shit out of everybody."
You're never gonna get out otherwise.
Just start swinging. But, you know, props to them having a backup plan if this wasn't going to work.
That's not the best part, though. That's not the best part. The best part is, after he beats the shit out of these guys, he decides, I'm going to triumphantly stand atop this fucking cage. I'm going to do it again. So he goes fucking back up, and he can't do it again. He can fucking do it again. So everybody else starts climbing, and then Homicide, who can't get out, drops down. So then all these other guys have to fucking drop down.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Well, that leads us to Jeff Hardy, one of many pointless fucking returns this night. What how many checks were cut for this show?
All he did was walk down and finish on the top of your girlfriend's diaphragm.
Good God.
Sitting up there.
An awkward confrontation
the right way to climb the cage.
And it was just like awkward. And then like the music plays. And I didn't watch TNA enough before to know what his music sounded like before, and I don't know if that was it, and I don't think it was. So the music plays. It seems like no one in the fucking audience knows what the fuck is even happening. And then it's Jeff Hardy. Everyone's like, "Hey, it's Jeff." And Homicide almost looks fucking surprised, although I'm sure he had to have known that Jeff was coming. They have an awkward, like, tussle, and then Jeff just comes atop the cage and just sits there.
Maybe he didn't.
That's it.
Maybe he didn't actually know Hardy was coming. Maybe somebody said to Jeff,
maybe he didn't.
Jeff, get out there now.
Get out there, do something.
The only way to save that match was to have him
do something to save this segment.
Oh my god!
You know, I think that probably was the conversation backstage.
I hope that's how
everything's going wrong.
So
everything's going wrong. Somebody needs to save this segment quick. Get out there now.
Send a WWE guy out there.
Just go ahead and climb and sit there. Just sit.
Just sit and just look at everybody.
Just look.
That's all he did. And then here's the fucking best part: the motherfucker doesn't come back on the TNA TV for months after that.
No,
what the fuck was the point of him showing up then?
dude,
There was no point.
Dude, like if you were like, and we all know that this whole show tends to be one colossal fuck up with a few tiny acceptable things thrown in just for posterity because it's real. But if you were to design the worst possible opener to an important card, could you statistically put it like the only thing missing is one of the wrestlers visually shitting their pants on television? That's the only thing. Homicide at one point screams fuck while he's dangling from this cage, too far up to go down, too far down to go up. Like
story of life.
Like how could you?
You should get that put on a TV. You should get that put on a T-shirt or something, Noah. Just for the fucking record. Just get that printed somewhere. God damn, that was deep.
That should have just been the intro. Too far down to go up, too far up to go down. It's TNA. But then we go after that. I mean, like, I don't really want to like go item by item on this show, but the show has such strange horseshit happens that the first person you see Jeff Hardy interact with after the commercial break, after that fucking shit show, is Shannon Moore. Like, that fucking matters to anybody. And the response that you guys just gave me is the response of the collective people watching. They go, oh yeah, fucking Shannon, like that. Like, that's the fucking guy. He goes back, and then and then also something that was lost on me, because when you're talking about Monday Night Raw, it's easy to forget until you turn it on that you have JR and the King.
Whew.
Over so much.
That's not what we had tonight.
No, we had Mike Tenay and fucking Taz.
Look, I'm not going to disparage or shit talk Mike Tenay, because I think he's a great play-by-play guy.
Great animal.
I love his knowledge. Is second to none, honestly. Taz is a fine color commentator, honestly. I mean, he's pretty good at what he does. The fact that he went from being... Let's just take a second and just appreciate Taz for where he started in his professional wrestling career as a fucking, like, mindless, wild man, a Taz maniac, right? To being
bumping in upstate New York, the
fucking FTW champion, to being the Thug Life guy, to being a fucking competent, solid, and reliable fucking announcer is pretty goddamn impressive. If you really want to, But let me fucking tell you something. Jim Ross is the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, without.
And to be fair, he wasn't on Raw, unfortunately. He should have fucking been. But any comparison, if you want to say Monday Night War, you think of, burning, all the candles are burning on all the ends, the cylinders are all pumping. Mike Tenay and Taz ain't it. It just ain't it. And they do a fine job, but it feels second rate. No offense to them. Again, not disparaging them. It sounds like I am. But it feels fucking second rate.
No, I think you could absolutely put in the idea that both men are talented individuals in whatever they apply themselves to. But
together,
it also, but commentary is a partnership. And it is about who you're with. JR, for a great example, is that when they split JR and the King up and they sent Cole to Raw and they sent JR to SmackDown to team with Mick Foley, it didn't work. Even though JR is the greatest of all time and Mick Foley could fucking sell ice to an Eskimo, the two of them together just didn't work, right? And the same thing is here too. You put Cole and Taz together, and they were fucking great. You put Tenay up alongside Shivani and Heenan, and you've got the voices of Nitro in the cruiserweight division. And the reason why Rey Mysterio is a fucking thing to begin with, and Eddie Guerrero and Chris Jericho and all of these, Dean Malenko has a career because Mike Tenay Googled him once, right? So this whole fucking thing works, but together it just didn't work out. And I don't want to shit talk, but that's the voices we got going on here. So it's almost like someone's putting two negative ends of the battery together and is trying to power something. It's just not gonna work. But
together they were not
what I
greater.
wanna-
Together
No.
they were lesser.
Yes, exactly. I'm trying to avoid going segment by segment, but the very next segment after this is a small sidebar I want to take. It's that we see Kevin Nash come out for his interview segment, or he's in the back, and they're asking Kevin Nash, what do you think about Hogan being in TNA? And Nash says that he's the smartest man in wrestling, but with Hogan comes more money, and he's excited to talk to Hulk about all that, which basically sets up where Nash's stance is going to be on this. But I think that this is one of the greatest travesties that this show does. And I'll tell you why, with Nash, because everyone's got opinions on everything in wrestling. And a lot of us smart fans, you put it that way, have strong opinions on Kevin Nash. But I believe that what Kevin Nash did in TNA when he came in up until about 2008 was some of the best work Kevin Nash ever did in wrestling. He was huge at NWO and as Diesel and super important, and he came back for a couple of cups of coffee in WWF and always did interesting things. But fucking Nash in TNA in 2006 went on this run where he decided that he was going to be in the X division.
Yes.
But the one thing you can say about Kevin Nash, regardless you like him or not, when the man wants to be funny, the man can be funny. And the shit he did, partnering himself with the X Division guys and elevated a lot of these guys who didn't know. The reason why Jay Lethal got the whole Black Machismo gimmick and got over in that regard is because they put him and Sabin and Shelley and a bunch of guys in with Kevin Nash. And he did this fucking thing where he came out and did a press conference that said that he was going to lend his star power to the X Division and that he was going to come out and start at the Kevin Nash Bound for Glory X Division Open Invitational Battle Royal Gauntlet for the Gold. That was the name of the match, and you had to say the whole fucking thing every time, and it was perfect. It was excellent. And then Nash is doing that great shit and doesn't have to pretend that he's this serious dude. But as soon as the show starts, it's like someone's like, all right, go into the back of Nash, unscrew the battery pack behind him, and flick the WCW I don't fucking care Kevin Nash switch.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
He seemed so uninterested, and I don't know if that was on purpose or not, if he meant it to come across that way. But it was like, I felt like, well, he's not pumped. He doesn't seem like he's interested in
the Nash before this is motivated to work with guys. But the Nash that shows up on this show and is there until he leaves and eventually power bombs Punk during the Summer of Punk thing is completely disinterested in everything he does.
Yeah, he was NWO Nash at that point. He saw that opportunity, and that's what we got.
The fucking travesty.
Agreed.
It's a fucking travesty right there. But all right, we get some other shit that happens on the show. Another who gives a fuck. I mean, first of all, I did note that there's only 4 segments that happen in this entire show. 4 segments, not 4 matches. There's 4 segments that don't ultimately end up involving an ex-WWE talent. 4. The next couple segments are not one of them. We get a new women's champion. But the big one that comes out of that is Ric Flair arrives. Ric Flair arrives in TNA because
for no reason.
Oh wait, hold on. Another check cut.
Yeah.
Yep.
For no reason.
For no reason other than Vince told him he's retired, and Ric Flair says, "The fuck I am. I owe a lot of money to a lot of people. I got to keep bumping." And so he goes to AJ Styles' locker room in a segment, and there you go. Then we see Mick Foley show up.
Can't get in.
Yeah, and Foley can't get in. Of course, Foley had been a part of TNA and doing some of his work before that. And then Bobby Lashley shows up because we're just pouring it all in there. Yeah. Oh my God. And then some segments later, Sean Waltman and Scott Hall show up.
Yep.
They bought tickets.
They bought tickets. 2 checks cut.
Row.
Let's count the WCW-isms that just happened in the 3 minutes of fucking recapping. You have disinterested Kevin Nash. You have slightly wasted. You have super high Sean Waltman.
Yeah, he didn't
Moderately
even know
high,
he was there.
Oh my god,
No.
they were both fucked up. They had to have
fucking
been.
gone.
Yeah.
Hall and Waltman there show up, and Ric Flair just randomly walks into someone's locker room, right, out of a limousine.
That actually sounds like something Ric Flair would do.
Yeah, but as we would find out, did he have consent to do it? That
Probably
is,
not.
Well, good question.
Probably not, as we find out, right? And then, but all of this horse shit happens. All of this horse shit happens to build up to the middle of the goddamn show. Now, one slight note before we talk about this person is that one of the hallmarks of WCW all over something was the fucking shitty music. WCW had some. WCW is like, what have someone's like, I got a great idea for a song, and WCW is like, hold on, let me fuck that up real fast for you, and then that's the song they would use. Pick a thing, and that's what they would do. And then, but whoever did the music for TNA on this night was like, I've got an idea. Have you ever heard the NWO theme? Well, yeah. Have you ever heard the NWO theme played out of someone driving past you's car while you're inside working on power tools? Yeah. That's what Hulk Hogan's going to come out here to today. It's like someone with a fucking buzzsaw. Well, somebody hums the NWO theme over it. fucking brutal. And it immediately, I blacked that out of my mind until this fucker comes out. And it's like, oh my God.
So one of the things that I made a note about while watching this is that Vince McMahon fully understands production value.
Mm-hmm.
There is money put into the stage. There's money put into the telecast. There's money put into the show. It is not just about what happens in the ring. Vince gets the entertainment piece of wrestling, I think, better than anybody ever has, and probably better than anybody ever will. I mean, hell, he invented most of it, right? So you see, and one of the things that I kept thinking about here, guys, is that, you know, I looked at TNA and I just drew so many parallels to AEW in terms of its origination, its genesis, it building young talent that doesn't want to go the WWE route, having some guys that are names to kind of like build around and some guys to kind of mentor. And then WCW just got too big for themselves and just brought everybody that had a name, and it just got too overcrowded, and a lot of their own guys got lost in the shuffle, right? I don't want AEW to go down that road, but you know, I look at some of the production value of AEW, and I'm looking, you know, you guys gotta, this is where the money's got to go, you know, especially for a television show. And you know, you could have a shitty match. I mean, we've watched a lot of shitty matches on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown over the years. I remember, Jones, my favorite example of this was it was a steel cage match between Batista and Chris Jericho, and it was a terrible match. And we always would joke that Chris Jericho could wrestle a broom and make it work, and he pretty much did in that match, because Batista was awful in that. And you could see Jericho knew it, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna make the best out of this because I this is what I do."
That's right.
But you know, as you're talking about the music, you talk about, you know, the other areas of the show besides just the performances in the ring. Nobody's ever really come close to equaling what Vince does. And I think that's where a lot of these shows really fall flat, is that, you know, it is a TV show. So you have to give the audience more than just a match. And as you said, Noah, you know, we're gonna basically take the B riff, the B side of the NWO theme music, and kind of put that in there. But that's just another part of it. You know, even for the wrestlers in WWE that have really generic, really shitty entrance music, at some point they're going to get something that slaps, right?
Yeah, if they get over enough.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So I just thought a lot of the production quality of the show, we're going to compete with WWE tonight by basically having like, and again, the geriatric WCW show up and hoping that still draws, but not do anything else to really build up the show visually. And when you have an opportunity like they did, because this was what a 3-hour show that TNA did that night. Was that right?
It felt like it.
I think it was a 3-hour show.
I believe it was.
I think it was a super.
Or was it 2 hours?
I know it was long.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But you gotta do something that can also interest the viewer. And they didn't do that.
Yeah. No, and it was, you can tell it was written by people that know what wrestling is, but had the wrong idea of what made wrestling popular at the time that they were writing for Wrestling Last. You know what I mean? In that kind of instance, like, oh yeah, well, Nitro had 12-minute rambling NWO Hulk Hogan segments. Yeah, but it's because everyone was already fucking over, and they were just trying to wait for Sting to drop down. You ain't got Sting dropping from the ceiling in this thing. It isn't 1996. It isn't gonna work.
Wait, no, Sting was in the ceiling.
I mean, yeah,
he was. He was.
Yeah.
That's right.
He still is on TNA.
Yeah.
Or AEW, I mean.
That's
right.
He hangs out there. Apparently it snows wherever Sting goes now, which I don't want to get into AEW too sidetracked, but Sting's AEW theme is fucking banging, and I'll stand next to that. It's a good fucking track. But one of my biggest fucking gripes about this is besides the fact that we will on this show, and we've talked about it a couple of times, have an episode titled Hulk Hogan, where we will have this extreme conversation about Hogan and all the fucking ways. But Hogan comes out to a song that sounds like the NWO theme, which was when he was a heel. Let's put that out there. And then he cuts what I think he felt was a babyface promo.
Oh boy.
But it fucking wasn't. None of the shit he says all night sounds legit or heartfelt.
You have to give Hogan credit because
no, I don't.
Now listen. All he wanted to do was say Hulkamania, brother. That's all he fucking wanted to say. And he had to actively think that entire promo that he was cutting to not say anything that Vince was going to sue the Carter family over, because that's all he wanted to do, and he fucking couldn't do it. And you could see, even with the sunglasses on, the fucking smoke coming out of his ears as he was trying to walk and chew gum at the same time, that this promo was never going to work. It just wasn't. I often wonder if Eric Bischoff was really a plan of that too. I think we had the same thing that happened with that first match. Like, fucking get out there, just save whatever you can. Because of all the shit ball that gets rolling there. But I mean, if you want to look up disingenuous in the dictionary, Hulk Hogan's picture will appear multiple times throughout reading the same sentence. But Hulk Hogan coming out and saying that he's been dreaming of feeling the energy of the fans in this building, when this is the man who helped draw 93,000 people allegedly to Detroit, is standing at Orlando studios in front of 190 people that he's performed for 6 years ago in fucking WCW, in the same room that WCW. And he's like, oh, I've been waiting, brother. I've been waiting for this. You've been fucking waiting for the check. No, he was clear. No, he was backstage. He was backstage the entire time, Noah. Like, he was actually physically waiting. It just kept putting food in front of his door.
I swear to God. And then, listen, I don't want to make this whole thing about, this thing goes 14 minutes. this segment. It felt like it's still happening right now.
It was a really long segment.
It was fucking ridiculous. And then you get Hall and Waltman that stagger out there.
You know, and they do the security angle because they were in the crowd.
Let him in.
Right?
Let him in. No.
But like a part of me actually wants to believe that security was really trying to keep them out of the ring because they're like, these guys are really fucked up. Don't let them go near the ring. Just don't.
They say the whole promo is about how WCW used to be and how they're not going to let TNA become what WCW used to be while letting TNA become what WCW
while doing that
used.
exact thing.
It's
ridiculous.
so
ridiculous.
meta. You couldn't be more meta if you fucking tried. So, listeners, what you got to keep in mind here too, Noah is in tears right now over this.
I feel we have to just address this because we've danced around it. I know I have. So we're going to just fucking put it out there for the audience to decide that we're right, obviously. So from the beginning of this show, there's one prevailing message. You don't know what's coming next. Or the money's coming, or we're on our way to being number one. Being number one, being alluded to, being number one is mentioned at least 10 times in this show, from what I can recall. Because Hulk Hogan is showing up. Specifically, because Hulk Hogan is showing up, okay? Hulk Hogan shows up with a fucking police escort, like he fucking needed that in 2010, but whatever, I can excuse that. I can use the pageantry, it's fine. He shows up, has the audacity to get in the ring, a 6-sided ring, by the way, and proceed to, without directly running down, but run down TNA as if they're fucking small potatoes until he showed up.
Yeah.
And I cannot even begin to tell you how much that fucking pissed me off. I'm not even a big TNA fan, but listening to that shit, I'm like, look, yeah, you're Hulk Hogan. I get it. You're the most influential professional sports entertainer of all time. Raw wrestling, man. Like, he made it happen. If Hulk Hogan wasn't a thing, would we be having this conversation right now? Probably fucking not. Who knows? But, god damn it, man. Like, TNA existed before you, dude. Right? Like, you can't just come out and diminish all this homegrown or semi-homegrown. It just does for like 14, 15 minutes straight. And like you said, Noah, he thinks he's cutting a babyface promo. And I'm just sitting there listening to this.
That's the thing with
I'm like, this is good, right? And then, Nash, Waltman, Eric Bischoff get in the ring and proceed to create what is easily a caricature of WCW, of the NWO. Only way older, way more out of shape, way more fucking high. Like, look, Scott Hall is easily, in my super, super humble opinion, one of the great fucking just wrestlers ever. Dude was just good at everything.
Unsung at the
but
top.
to watch him in that ring, the way he was, I felt bad. And look, and again, look, man, people get their demons, and we all know about them, and they happen, and it fucking happens. Like, look at Jeff Hardy, shit happens, and it's unfortunate, and it sucks that it happened to him. So, of all people, Scott Hall, because it didn't have to. He could have been such a bigger name than he was, unfortunately, but he just didn't end up there. But to watch him in the ring that night, I was just like, fuck, man. Talk about legacy tarnishing. To watch fucking Waltman in there, to watch Hulk Hogan Babylon and Eric Bischoff Babylon about, like you said, we're not doing it the old way anymore, brother. I'm like, but you are literally doing it the old way right now.
Right at this moment.
Yeah, it's actually happening before our very eyes, and the audience, people who show up to TNA, who love TNA, who love Samoa Joe and AJ Styles and Amazing Red and Christopher Daniels, who fucking love these guys, are listening to Hulk Hogan tell them, your shit sucks. I'm gonna make it awesome. And then I wrote the shit down because I fucking had to. And it was just like, again, the audacity.
Physical notebook has come back.
Fucking, it's never gone away, by the way.
No, but like you haven't like physically referred to it for a verbatim sentence in quite a while. That means you're pissed.
This shit is so fucking arrogant, right? Towards the end of the promo, he has the fucking stones, man. The stones. He has the stones to say, we won't stop until we're the #1 sports entertainment company in the world. I swear to fucking God. You are using Vince's verbiage. You're using his fucking language. You fucking lost already, and you don't even know it. You know who invented sports entertainment? Vince McMahon did. You know who hated it? Everybody else who ran a promotion. Everybody else who AWA, and they didn't call it sports entertainment. Vince did. And the fact that Hulk Hogan, who is the embodiment of sports, I guess, has the nerve to say, we're going to beat sports entertainment with sports entertainment. No, you fucking, no one can.
So
you think anybody beat Vince McMahon? No one can. I'm done.
So
I'm spent.
You guys said at the beginning here of the podcast when we were talking about why they did what they did, why they brought Brett out on January 4th because Hogan, right? You can say, and you can make the claim that the greatest collaboration in probably wrestling history is a collaboration between Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon. Hulk Hogan when he's with Vince and what that does, and also what Vince has to create when he doesn't have Hogan, right? Because when he lost Hogan, when he lost all those guys, when WCW and Turner was putting out the big contracts for everybody, you know, that led to necessity. That led to the Attitude Era. That led to giving a platform to Triple H and Stone Cold and The Rock and letting, you know, all these guys take the mantle and create something new, right? And, you know, giving into what bringing Hogan again into TNA at this point gives Vince again, all right, well, I'm just going to go ahead and play these fucking cards again and make the shit I'm doing much more entertaining, you know? And it's kind of been that way for a long time. You know, Hogan wasn't Vince's creation necessarily because Hogan was it's kind of a collaborative effort there and what they were able to build together, you know. Everything you talk about Hogan's accomplishments as a wrestler is off of Vince's creations, you know. But you know, there's a yin and a yang to those two that'll forever be connected in wrestling. So, you know, as much of a fuck up as Hogan is, you know, there's a lot of creation that comes from him and that character for and against.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, you know, it was a long promo and it felt even longer than it actually was of him just shitting on guys, with the exception of Angle and AJ Styles. But he kept going back to the fact of everybody's got to earn their spot here. This isn't like the old way.
Yeah.
And Dixie Carter's ringside just fucking eating out of his hand. Like, this is going to make our business. Meanwhile, it started straight down from there.
Mm-hmm.
No,
It's
yeah,
unfortunate.
and the last icing on the fuck cake that we have here today is that Eric Bischoff comes out, and just if you're like, what could make this segment more WCW? Oh, I don't know. The fucking guy who ran WCW comes out and cuts a say nothing bullshit end.
He was
to this fucking
he was all over the place and got no point across whatsoever.
Well, no. Oh, they lost it about 5 seconds after Waltman and Hall got on the mic, and no one ever recovered any damn thing. Hogan says everyone's under a microscope. And they do that thing that wrestlers who are trying to have their line be the last line that isn't a promo do, where they just keep reiterating the same point they say over again. When someone cuts them off and then they say it again, except no one is there in a strong enough production thing to say, all right, we're going to commercial in 10, 9. So they have to fucking wrap it up. And they let Hogan go for a fucking year.
And then there was the 3 minutes of awkwardness where he's like, "Where's the producer? Get me the
Oh
script."
my god, that took way
And
too
then
long.
they're just like, they're cutting around like, is there a producer here? Is there even a script? I don't
Dude,
fucking know.
no,
And they just kept
there-
looking around, and then they
producers on this
handed him
show?
a stack of papers, and he's
But more
just talk-
importantly, Bischoff had a similar stack of papers that he was able to pull out on cue.
Oh,
No,
that was
'cause
the
that's
new
the actual format.
that's the new format.
No, I
yeah.
know, but like, you know, you guys know, like when you got a project due, it's for school, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna do it tomorrow. I'm gonna do it tomorrow. Now I'll wait till tomorrow. And then it's 10 o'clock the night before it's due, and you realize you haven't even fucking started it yet. So you quickly start to put some stuff down on paper, but you fucking fell asleep while you're working on it. So you literally have like 2 pages or like a third of a diorama that you need to hand in tomorrow. And then you wake up and your mom's like, you got to fucking go to school. So you show up and you just have this half-assed, really loosely put together thing that you try to work. That's how this episode of TNA felt. It's like, it's almost like
a good way
they
to put
just
it.
kept trying to
That's
kick
really
the
a way to put
can till we come up with something good. And then it's like 10 minutes to air. And they're like, well, what do you guys got? It's like, I thought you had it. I know
We have
you
a
said you were gonna do.
page.
No, we're gonna do. No, you said you were gonna do it. Somebody had to have gotten fired from this. You'd like to think.
No, speaking of getting fired from this, after a
Oh.
whole bunch of other shit goes on in the show, including making the main event for the pay-per-view that they'd been hyping up thus far in the show,
Oh.
now the main event of tonight's show, because that makes fucking sense to announce that halfway through the show after the segment you've been promoting all night. We get Jeff Jarrett comes out,
Mhm.
the guy who actually started the company, and he comes out, and the crowd, who he has been talking to the entire time TNA has been in existence and in Orlando, chants for him, letting you know that he's a super baby face. And then he
Because
comes
he went
out
out as a babyface before he came back. So
Yeah.
that's, you know,
So he's a babyface in front of this crowd, and he talks about how he's proud to be there, babyface, and how he tried to convince Hogan for years to come apart to be in TNA, but it wasn't right. But he's glad it's happening now, babyface, and how that of all the stuff he accomplished in his career, he's most proud of starting TNA to give a bunch of guys opportunity, and then he names other babyfaces, and gets a babyface reaction. And then fucking Hulk Hogan comes on the screen and says, fuck you.
just,
He literally says, so what? Nobody cares. Like, and he's the baby face. And then he talks about how Jeff single-handedly ran this company
oh
into
my
the ground.
god. Again,
Like-
diminishing the history of TNA again.
It devalues the entire
If he
thing,
if
everything
once
they
wasn't
built
enough
to that
do it
point.
twice, he does it 8 times in this promo. But interrupting Jeff Jarrett, he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? I think they really want me to go back out there, Dixie, and fuck it, just shit all over him again. They seem to really eat that up. They see the people chanting TNA when I was talking about WCW. That really works well for me." And then last thing he says is for Jeff Jarrett to put his boots on and wrestle, which should be not a fucking big kayfabe reveal because Jeff Jarrett never stopped wrestling the entire time he was in TNA. It's not like, oh man, I got to go to work. That's what he fucking's been doing. Regardless how you feel about Jeff Jarrett, it was, and then they follow up the fucking Jeff Jarrett horse shit with, oh, okay, so randomly we were also promoting a barbed wire match that's just not going to happen now because WCW and W. You know, I'm not.
We haven't even gotten to my favorite part of this whole TNA show.
What is your favorite part?
Please.
Well, it is the final match of the evening, right? Where we're actually getting something that we all want to see. We're getting fucking
Okay.
AJ Styles against Kurt Angle, as we said, was supposed to be their pay-per-view main event. But we're just gonna do it now. Because I think they realize, again, as kind of going through here and throwing darts at fucking note cards on a board and seeing what lands and sticks to go ahead and put this show together, that it's fucking failing miserably. So we have to do something to salvage this. Let's go ahead and just push up our main event and figure it out later. Because, you know, that's basically how this entire show came together. So we're getting a very solid match between AJ Styles and Kurt Angle. Two fantastic wrestlers. in their prime, being able to fucking work.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then halfway through the match, fucking Ric Flair walks out. And they're like, oh my God, it's Ric Flair. And then he walks this way on the stage and he looks. And he walks over again and looks. And then he just leaves.
He just shuffles away.
He just shuffled away. And that was I'm watching this and I'm like, did they just push him out?
Just get out there. Go.
Did he get lost backstage and just happen to wander on the stage and just realize, I'm here now? I just don't understand. They're like he was in. Oh, it's like it's Ric Flair. He was in AJ Styles' locker room, and then nothing.
Yeah.
So Flair comes out, and it's like supposed to be this tense moment leading into the commercial break. That Flair's out there, he's going to do something. What's he going to do? We'll be right back. And we come back, and Flair's fucking standing there. And I've never seen a 16-time world champion literally meander on camera before.
Listen,
But he looks like when the dad of the family drops his family off at the front of the restaurant and tells them to go get a table and get in, and he's going to go park the car. And then he walks in the front door of the restaurant and has to look to see.
He can't find his family
forever.
He's wandering.
And he's looking forever. And then just kind of takes the side of the restaurant to shuffle towards, hoping that they're there.
Oh.
Or someone
He
goes,
really...
Dad. That's what
You know
fucking
what?
Ric Flair brought to this show.
I wrote in my notes, very specifically during this moment. I'm glad you brought that up, Dave. Rick really looks his age in this moment. And I don't know why in this very moment. Maybe because TNA just siphoned all of the whatever residual youth he had left.
Yeah, he looks like he has dementia as he's wandering up on the stage.
No, when Shawn Michaels kicked him in the face in Orlando 9 months before this, it left all of his everything. And I'm not even kidding because we've seen it happen. But everything that made Ric Flair got kicked in the face that night in Orlando and never came back. Flair came back. But what made Ric Flair was retired that night, and everything else was a shell of it. Now, I want to give credit to this match because, despite all the WCW horseshit going on around this, it's still AJ Styles, and inevitably the first time he ever hit his prime, and Kurt Angle in the last time he ever hit his prime, fucking working. And
I had a big problem with this match, but go ahead, Noah.
And no, it's just like the sheer athleticism was incredible. But my one major note is that I am hard pressed to see anything. We see it a lot these days, in my opinion, where people do so many moves, but I couldn't tell you what story they tried to tell.
Thank you.
In this match.
Yep.
They couldn't plan it. It was just move.
There was zero story.
All I'm thinking about, Noah, right? Because this is what Bret Hart would do. Right? Let's go ahead and tie these two things together. Kurt Angle has the fucking ankle lock on AJ Styles, 3 times in this match at least? And no fucking collateral damage at all. Like AJ Styles should have been limping through this match.
Shouldn't have been able to springboard all 9 times.
Springboard as much as he did, and there's your opportunity to start telling a story. Where, Angle just keeps going back to the leg. He keeps going back to the ankle. He keeps working that side. AJ can't do what he's supposed to do. How's the defending champion going to get out of this match against Kurt fucking Angle, right?
Against the rest of the machine.
And we've had this conversation, too, off the air about finishing moves. And the purpose of a finishing move is to finish off a competitor. And how we get to the point now where finishing moves don't finish off competitors in matches, where we had, I think AJ did his finishing move at least 3 times. Kurt Angle does the fucking Olympic angle slam, whatever you want to call it at this point, off the top rope.
for a 2
God
count.
damn.
And they just keep kicking out. And if when you get to that point in any match where we're just going to see them do the moves like that, it's one of the things about WWE that I give them a lot of credit for is that a lot of wrestlers have a medium move and then they have a final move. There's the the people's elbow. There's stone. I'm having trouble kind of thinking of everything, but a lot of wrestlers have like this intermediate move 10 minutes into the match that they're going to hit on somebody, and that the end is going to start. We're going to start getting into the last act of the match because we're starting to pull out some of the moves. But when you get into these situations where people just keep hitting their finisher again and again and again, it doesn't finish it off. You're diminishing what that move means to the wrestler who's giving it and what the story's trying to tell. And then at that point, you don't know when the match is really going to end. And I don't think those false counts really help in these points anymore. When it's just athleticism. And again, the athleticism was fantastic in this match, but there was zero story being told whatsoever. And it just completely disinterested me because I'm like, well, now I'm just kind of ready for this to end.
Yeah, it was so repetitive. And it obviously went over time, and they played it as Hulk Hogan's here and he talked to Spike TV and they're going to let us run over on time. And they still just kept doing the same fucking moves.
They did. No, they did. And I want to here's the big thing about this match. And this is the biggest lift up that I could. And like the most WCW thing that this show might have done. If not the Hogan segment, then it's definitely this. Is that regardless, take all the criticisms we have about this match on. Here's a match that goes multiple segments that features the two most talented wrestlers this company has out of a myriad of talented wrestlers. And they kick out of everything that they can possibly throw at each other, left and right, and have this amazing pay-per-view quality match. And it ends. And the young upstart AJ Styles is supposed to cement himself as the face of this new company that has all of these stars at the figurehead. And Kurt Angle, the greatest wrestler in the world, arguably at that time, is now he's been bested. And where do they go after that barn burner of a match? And then you would typically say, good night, everybody. Join us next week.
Right.
No, we're going to go to fucking Val Venis playing strip poker in the back because this can't get more WCW than that. Hogan has to cut a rambling promo. He's like, oh, they just raised the bar of TNA over and over again. And we're going to be the greatest rise and company in the history of wrestling, brother. And then someone runs up to him and tells him something off screen. Hogan's got to go back where Mick Foley and fucking Val Venis have an argument. And then the NWO attacks Mick Foley in front of Eric Bischoff and Hogan. And the biggest show in the history of this company ends with Hulk Hogan going, what? Like that's your not AJ Styles and Kurt Angle, not the Hogan promo, none of that. It's Hogan going, you did what? Copyright TNA 2010.
One of the things that I kind of took from this, watching this again, was, I think in wrestling there is a tendency to want to go back on what was popular, right? The Attitude Era is never going to happen again.
No.
It's never going to happen again.
It can't.
And no, absolutely it can't. But like when you go into the room and Val Venis is playing strip poker as Mick Foley's going to burst through the door, it doesn't work anymore. It worked in 96 and 97. Well. Yeah. It doesn't work in 2010. When you try to bring back Hall and Nash and Hogan and Bischoff, yeah, that fucking worked in 95, 96 and everything, right? It was fucking huge, but we've seen it already. And not to mention the fact that these guys are all 15 years older and you're putting all that wear and tear on all these guys physically, mentally, the substances they put into themselves and what that does to you. And, one of the things, again, we have our love of Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho is always looking forward. He is always looking to the next thing. He doesn't go back. He doesn't sit on those laurels. He comes up with the next thing that he's going to do with his character. And I think when you look at what happened here at this show, is that they completely lost sight of that. They thought that by getting the band back together, we're going to be able to catapult this to what WCW had. And everybody was just kind of like, oh, fuck, we already saw this. So why do I want to see this
give us
again?
something new.
Well,
there's a variable. If I may, there is one variable we haven't really mentioned.
Is it the fucking Nasty Boys?
Oh
the
my
Nasty
God.
Boys showed up
no.
on his fucking
No,
show.
that was all
couldn't fucking
Direct 3D's locker room.
No, a much more important variable that shame on us for not bringing up, and if we have, and I somehow missed it, shame on me. But one of the biggest reasons this show ended up the way it did is just because of Hogan or Bischoff or Dixie Carter, because of Vince Russo. The Vince Russo variable is very much a thing here. He's in charge of writing this show, right? You want to talk about, Sean Morley in a strip poker vignette or a segment. That's Vince Russo. If nothing else is Vince Russo, that's Vince Russo, right?
I gotta tell you,
his
bro.
fingerprints all over it.
Yeah. No.
So much of the show. It's him. It's his story. It's his baby. Now I don't. And again, I don't know the true inner workings of TNA, especially back then, and like how the pecking order with creative. But I would assume, and assuming it makes an ass out of you and me. But I would assume that Vince Russo tells Dixie, "Yeah, this is going to work." She goes,
"Yeah."
Period.
Yeah, because she doesn't know that side of the business. She doesn't know.
I gotta tell you, bro. What you gotta do is have Ric Flair meander out there like he's in the old country buffet, and he doesn't know where he wants to start. If it's the salad or the dessert.
He couldn't find a plate. No, that was his problem.
Couldn't find
he
a
got
silver
to the buffet, and the
bro.
plates just weren't there, and he just didn't know what to do.
Oh my god!
Like you guys were talking about like it was like he walked into the restaurant, was meandering, trying to find where his family was at. I looked at it as he walked into the restaurant and realized that he was in an Olive Garden when he was supposed to be at a TGI fucking Friday. And it took him a couple minutes to realize that he was not in the right restaurant.
Flair probably could have looked at his watch and figured out that he was in the wrong place, but he probably had recently sold it. So,
damn, dude.
Oh man.
Listen. I have decided that I'm coming for the old guard here on this show. Okay.
Okay.
Because both Ric Flair, let me just tell you what, Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan have had many of allegation levied against them. We even have concrete proof of a couple of them, right? Two wrestlers that they have dogged with their every breath that they possibly could, to a certain extent, were Bret the Hitman Hart and the Macho Man Randy Savage. And likewise, Bret Hart and Randy Savage also couldn't give a shit for Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan. And now here we are, the further away from all of their large rides at the top we are from history. I am much more proud to stand in the camp of the motherfucking Macho Man than I am of the motherfucking Nature Boy Ric Flair. No. Fuck you. All right? But your son-in-law?
Well, there's that.
He's nice.
Well, he's good guy.
I enjoy his content.
His content's fantastic. Yeah. Shout out.
Excellent.
Meanwhile, all this entire last match of the night is going head to head with Randy Orton against Kofi Kingston.
You know what, though? I tell you what. Some things age better than not. And if you told me that the main event of Raw today was going to be Randy Orton and Kofi Kingston, fuck yeah. Jesus Christ. Right?
Yep.
Like, yeah, with 1,000 times. Yeah. But if you told me the main event of Raw today was going to be Val Venis playing strip poker with the beautiful people while Mick Foley gets his ass beat by the remaining members of the NWO, I would be like, new phone. Who dis? Lose my number.
Dude, those guys at the end of that show, the NWO or whatever you want to call them, the band did exactly what they said they wouldn't do. They spent 14 minutes saying they wouldn't do. They did anyhow. And it's sort of like, what was the point of all this then? Like, as a
great question.
As a potential fan of TNA, if I were a prospective fan, if I'm, somebody tells me, okay, matter of fact, fuck it, I'll go that distance. So years ago, right, back in 2010, when I worked as a manager of a grocery store, assistant manager of a grocery store, I had a friend of mine, a coworker, who was a big fan of wrestling just like me. And he and I would go back and forth about all sorts of stuff all throughout the day. Every day. It kept the same, right? He rolls up on me one day, and he's the first person who told me that Hulk Hogan was coming to TNA. And I went, really? And he goes, yeah, and rumor has it, so is Eric Bischoff. And I went, oh, yeah? And he goes, yeah. And I remember just kind of going, that's a fucking stupid-ass idea. And he's like, what? And he got hot. He got really salty at me. Like, what do you mean? Blah, blah, blah. It's Hulk Hogan. I'm like, brother, like, why? What good's that even going to do? Like, they don't need Hulk Hogan. They need guys like Samoa Joe. They need people who are going to wrestle. And he's like, no, he's going to bring eyes. He's going to bring them. Like, yeah, maybe. For how long, though? And I will be goddamned. It did not last long. You know what I mean?
No.
What was the point?
No.
There was
listen,
no point.
There was no point. We could sit here, and I'm sure we're all going to state how we feel about this here at the end of this episode, but it's not about how we felt about it. It's about how the people that were supposed to watch the show felt about it. Let me give you an idea. The Impact before the TNA Monday Night War debacle, before Hogan debuted, drew a 1.09 rating. Okay? Which doesn't sound like a lot. It isn't a lot. It's actually not much less than what Raw does these days, right? But Monday Night Raw drew a 3.1, excuse me. The TNA 2010 Impact rating that we have now, this show we're talking about, Raw drew a 3.6 that day. Impact drew a 1.5. So it was a significant bump up with everybody coming. Half a point more. The next time they were on Mondays, as we have alluded to way earlier in this show, wasn't the next Monday. It wasn't even the next month. It was over 2 months later that they decided that they needed to double down, and they decided to run the entirety of March and April to see how this would go on Mondays. Let me read you the ratings that they did in order. On March 8th, WWE's in WrestleMania season. I'm not even going to read WWE's ratings here, but they're in WrestleMania season at this point. Impact drew a 0.98. So right away, the second Monday that they did had less ratings than when Hulk Hogan hadn't even come into the company. Then they did a 0.84, 0.86, 0.62, 0.9, 0.8, 0.9, 0.5, and the final one, when Spike TV pulls the plug, is a 0.8, conclusively proving that TNA was better off ratings-wise before Hulk Hogan ever showed up than they were when he did. Asking once again, what the fuck was the point other than to get a myriad of people that Hulk Hogan knows money for a very limited amount of work? Keep in mind that only this show was live. So they taped. So they didn't even work all those days individually. They went to Orlando probably 3 or 4 times, made an excessively large amount of money. For what? For what? Because I always have this theory, and I don't mean to be political on anybody, but when you look at an evil that happens in the world, and you can't figure out why it is the way it is, it's because I feel that there's an old rich white man getting richer because it's happening. If you can't figure out why somebody's doing something in wrestling and you can't figure it out, it's either because it makes Vince McMahon richer or it makes Hulk Hogan richer. This is the latter. This whole fucking thing happened because Hulk Hogan wanted to be richer, and he talked some gullible fucking people into making it happen. If Hulk Hogan comes to you with a fucking idea and the words "the nasty boys" come out of his fucking mouth, you're being taken for a ride. What the most upsetting and shocking thing to me is that Dixie Carter would continue her relationship with Hulk Hogan and being in charge of TNA for years to come after this.
Well, at some point you make your bed, you just got to sleep in it. You know, I mean,
it's true.
What are you going to do? Just going to go ahead and just say, well, after 3 months, this isn't working. We're just going to go ahead and cut ties. Who knows what that contract looked like and what level of defeat you admit when you do that. Yeah. I mean, at some point, you enter into those partnerships and you have to make something out of it. You know, you got to make a sandwich out of what you got in the kitchen, and it could be a shitty sandwich, or it could be delicious, but you're just gonna have to make something out of it. One of the great things when Herb and I were roommates, where we're hungry, we don't have a whole lot to eat. What the fuck are we gonna make? And just what can we create out of what we have in the kitchen? And some great things, i.e. the pasta, came out of it. So, like, it's the same kind of a thing. When you make that decision that you're going to go ahead and bring in these notable names and you're hoping to get that bump from notoriety, you just have to go with it. You can't admit that defeat, because then you lose not only the people you're trying to bring in, but also the people that were there for you the whole time. You risk alienating everybody and the whole thing goes to shit. And one of the things that I always hope for AEW is that, they continue on the trajectory where, when people get fired from WWE, and we see it all the time, and everybody is always like, oh my God, I can't believe they let so-and-so go. Is that person going to go to AEW now? Or are they just going to go ahead and pick up WWE's cast-offs? And a lot of times, there's some guys that they do, and there's a lot of people they don't. I'm sure money has a big part to play in that, because you just can't get all those inflated contracts. But also, you don't want to just keep trying to recycle. You need to build your own thing. You need to take your creative in your own direction. And, if TNA doesn't do this, who knows where they go? Because you guys are right. They did have a stable of athletes. They had some good people that they were able to build around. And who knows what they could have continued to build. But ultimately it fell apart. So I just hope AEW doesn't do the same thing, because I see a lot of parallels there.
Yeah, it's easy to make that.
Make the same mistakes.
I want to leave the last piece of useless information I'll offer you here. That this show happens in January 4th, 2010. Within the next 3 years, AJ Styles is gone. Most of the people that make TNA have left or have moved on. Jeff Jarrett's gone. A lot of other people are gone. 2014 would see the Sting leaves. They're most fabled. Hogan's gone. Despite all of this and all of the troubles that would happen for the years of TNA in one way or another still exists as Impact Wrestling. But from 2002 until well past this, TNA still existed as TNA Wrestling. And the most shocking statistic I can offer you, that in 1989, when WCW was formed out of Jim Crockett Promotions and the National Wrestling Alliance, that entity lasted just over 11 years. TNA lasted longer than WCW.
It's a hell of a thing.
Despite their best effort to fail.
Despite
right?
I mean,
yeah.
And despite Vince's, just vengeance. I have an opportunity to buy this thing that gave me all this trouble and basically bury it. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Vince doesn't give a shit about TNA. I don't think he ever will. It wasn't worth it to him. And
no, it was just a blip on his radar.
Yeah.
It was another farm league for him to grab people and throw it into. But we will one day talk about AJ Styles and a more concrete thing. And I love Samoa Joe, and I love a lot of the talent that went through there. But the best thing that TNA ever did for wrestling was AJ Styles. And I think we can all completely agree on that.
Easy.
To the point where AJ Styles, in a time where every talent in Ring of Honor and New Japan went to NXT when they were in their big signing thing, AJ didn't. AJ bypassed all that shit because he had long since been main roster ready. And I think that is the probably biggest check mark that TNA will ever have. And what did they do for the career of AJ Styles? But gentlemen, if you could sum up in just one word the attempted resurrection of the Monday Night Wars here on January 4th, 2010, what word would you use?
I wouldn't
I'll
use a
go.
word.
Go.
Go ahead, Jones.
Please.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go.
I wouldn't even use a
I was
word.
going to say that.
Go ahead.
All right.
Well, goddamn. Mac, go ahead, please.
All right. I wouldn't even use a word. I just use a sound, and it's the Price is Right losing horn.
That
That's
is
it.
fantastic.
That's my piece to that.
That's good. That's so good. Doc. What's your word?
Real easy. Short-sighted.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Jafar.
Mine would be shit show. And I think, TNA had a lot of decent things that they've done over the years, and it has its place in the wrestling world overall. But when you have people at the top who are solely focused on money, when you have shit creative, and you bring in these big guys for big paychecks to try to draw eyeballs, yes, that's great in the moment. But if you have a subpar product, you can't have longevity. And I think ultimately that's what killed TNA.
Killed its momentum for sure.
Well, there's nothing TNA could do with Hogan that hadn't already been done.
Mm-mm.
He's the biggest babyface in the world. We saw that through the 80s. He was the biggest heel in the world. We saw that in the 90s. What else are you going to do with him? Nothing. There's nothing you could have done with Hogan at that point. And
Put him on a pole. I don't fucking know.
Just more of the same.
It just fucking hit the brakes on anything they had.
Mr. Brown?
WCW. That's my one word. The good, the bad. WCW. Happened. The most WCW show we've ever reviewed was a TNA show on this night. But the quest continues to find something that it's how funny. Have we been able to stray too far away from Bret Hart so far in our wrestling? Like, it seems like we do a little bit and then we get roped right back into that fucking shit. Right?
He's a big part of a lot of things.
Yes.
Well, I once again want to thank our listeners for being a big part in all of the things. 1,000 downloads and
Yes.
going ever stronger. You guys are amazing.
Absolutely.
But we got some fun shit coming up for you guys. I'm not going to do what we do. Last week, Spider-Man No Way Home Expedition taught me that I don't want to announce too far ahead of what we're doing for two reasons. One, because we can fucking change our minds on a whim.
We're fucking adults here.
And two, no one seems to care that we did. So why would I let fucking expectations be, right? I did not get one angry, you guys we're talking about all-time movie soundtracks or The Matrix. No, we fucking changed that shit twice. And no one complained about it.
Yeah. Everybody was completely cool with it.
It might be fun just to kind of keep certain shit as a surprise until we lay it in there. But we've got some cool shit coming up here for you guys coming up. And we're excited for you to have and be along on the journey with us. And I'm not going to say what, because I haven't asked them what. But a little insider baseball, a lot of the topics picked thus far in the show were picked by Doc and myself early into the show's run, long ahead of time. Like, this show here has been on the calendar since fucking October, just because I knew what date a Tuesday fell on January 4th. But that is, talk about the end of an era. That shit's over, because I am super excited because we're approaching the era where Mac and Jafar are going to pick the shit we talk about. And I am fucking excited because they are fucking deviant.
No pressure at all.
I can't wait to do an entire episode on 11:30 in later Cinemax. That's fine.
Red Shoe Diary
on that one.
Cinemax,
Absolutely. Little belly button grinding.
A little something for the midnight listener.
Spit out midnight listener.
There you go.
House coming, sneezing, and pissing going all at the same time.
Biologically impossible, but painful.
I know. If anybody could do it, it's him. I appreciate it.
Quite possibly.
He's got time.
Guys, one last thing I want to say here as we look to wrap this up here. We didn't mention earlier, but we usually do this segment at the beginning of the show, but we'll do it here. Gentlemen, what are you drinking?
Oh,
What did I drink is more like it. It's gone.
Yeah, what did you drink?
Mine is also
gents?
gone.
yeah, same.
I had a glass of some Hudson whiskey, some bourbon. Just drinking it up.
Very nice.
Jafar?
Oh no, I'm gonna hop in there just because I was in the middle of talking, and I'm not gonna let this whole back and forth thing happen that you two had happen earlier. I tried a new beer from Bell's called Mars. It's double IPA. Get it in here. I just got it because as soon as I saw it, I heard you have to get your ass to Mars. So I got my ass to Mars.
You did. And I was drinking a Blizzard of Hops from Trogs. It's a winter IPA.
I adore the Wizard of Hops. And Mac, what are you drinking?
Well, since I'm in my recovery phase, I haven't quite graduated from the drinks that have been trying to get me better. So I'd finished a fruit punch Gatorade.
Ooh, the red stuff.
So trying to just keep myself hydrated here as I get to the end of my 2 weeks of coronavirus, and hopefully get past this piece of shit son of a bitch virus.
That's right.
Well,
Noah, can I get a fuck you for COVID-19?
You know what? I feel like that's appropriate. Like that's the one I feel like the least guilty about. So I'm going to layer this with a responsible. I'm going to do a golf ball. I'm going to make the T be a responsible statement, and then I'm going to fucking hit it with a fuck you. So we here at Nothing Good absolutely send our heartfelt thoughts, prayers, condolences to anyone who's ever suffered needlessly because of the effects of coronavirus or ever known anybody who has ever done that. And we want you to know that if you are suffering, have suffered, or know someone who did, that we appreciate you and want you to know that we are thinking about you and hope that you have the strength you need to find the solace and recovery in these times. But to the COVID-19 virus, and because I don't fucking care, because this is our fucking show, to the motherfuckers that may willy-nilly spread the COVID-19 virus around because you're a fucking piece of shit, then let me say this to you right now. Fuck you. Okay? Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. I want to go to the movies. I want to go to the restaurant. I want to have a steak. I want to see my family on Christmas, but I can't because you, the virus, and you, the fuckers enabling this thing to keep going on, are fucking assholes. So get your shit together. Fucking step your shit up and fucking do the right thing. Fuck you.
Well said.
Thank you.
That sounded good. I felt good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was solid.
I feel strongly. The only thing I feel strongly about that is fucking WCW. Okay? Fucking died in 2001 and then 9 years later found the fucking way to come back. Like a fucking shitty reboot. It's like someone's like, oh, I've got an idea. We're going to fucking reboot the shitty X-Men movies. And then you know what? It fucking lasts one movie and
it's that herpes that you thought went away, Noah, and then 9 years later it reared its ugly head.
We all know the herp don't go away. Okay? It fucking hires Hulk Hogan and all of his fucking friends, and it comes back every so often. Fuck, I don't know. How does that motherfucker like? Yeah, I don't care if you show up at WrestleMania in a fucking pirate suit. I'm not gonna forget. Okay, I'm not gonna fucking forget any of it.
Nope.
Fuck you.
Nope.
Well, next week, PC gaming. Am I right?
PC gaming roots, specifically,
Taking it back.
Yeah, the roots.
Taking it back to
our
the
OG
roots.
experiences. I'm really excited to talk about this. There's a good number of games that I cannot remember the name of, but I can see them. Like I can visualize the games, but I have no idea what the fuck they're called, and I got to figure that out. I'd like to talk to family members for this, so it'll be fun.
I can't wait to talk about Minesweeper and Free Cell and Solitaire
I
and
just
Spider
figured out.
Oregon
Solitaire and that fucking space pinball game that I
Space
just couldn't
Pinball
get
was
enough
badass,
of.
dude.
Yeah.
So how about I just figured out how to play Minesweeper like 3 weeks ago? Like I didn't know with like what the fucking numbers on the flag meant, and then it could also be dying. I just like loaded up fucking clicking randomly around the goddamn screen. Oh, I died. I don't give a shit. I got other stuff on here. But then I was like, how does one play Minesweeper, or does Minesweeper play you? Well, I fucking learned. So that's some information right there. Still not
in theory, as if all goes to plan, and I still have to make some calls, we will have a guest on the show. We will have a longtime friend of the show, Gibby will probably be joining us. So I'm excited about that.
Card subject to change if he decides that he has to fly across the country for another Sexiest Lips convention. So,
I mean, to be fair, that is kind of a big goddamn deal.
It literally happened.
He and I still haven't talked about
celebrity.
Yet. We're going to talk about it.
Oh, if he's on the show, that's like the
that's
third thing I'm going to say to him. Hey, Gibby, do you remember that time I beat your ass in front of a party full of people in SmackDown vs. Raw 2006 on the Xbox 360? By the way, who voted you to have sexy lips? And why don't you tell me an excruciating amount of detail about that? That's how it's going to go.
Yes, indeed.
So we got that and more to look forward to.
That's right.
We are eventually going to talk about music again, too, which is going to be fun. So
yeah. That's going to be a good time. I'm very excited about that subject. That specific album.
But I'm excited for everyone who joined us here today. Is there any last parting thoughts on the ill-fated 2010 Monday Night Wars that anyone has to offer before we send these people home?
Not specifically about that, but I just want to thank all the listeners again who have been with us on this journey. 1,000 streams for us is a big deal, and we're looking forward to you guys being here with us for the next 1,000. So thank you.
Yes. I echo what Jeff said, and we really appreciate it. And please tell your friends, tell anybody you think would be interested in what we're doing. You know, we drop every Tuesday, and we're just really getting started, honestly. So I'm really excited to see where this goes another year or so.
And I just want to, as the calendar always flips anew this time of year, just wishing everybody a happy and healthy new year. Whether you make resolutions, whether you make goals, or you just want to take it day by day, it's a blank slate for you in 2022. I hope you make this year the best. And, I wish everybody that listens, and even some of you who don't listen, and find this episode maybe a little bit later on in the archives, a happy, healthy, safe, and prosperous new year.
We hope that you make the new year into your WCW and you fucking run this thing straight into the goddamn ground. So on behalf of everyone here on the show, we wish you a very happy new year, and we say this new year, we sincerely hope that it is nothing good.